Hey, good morning, everyone. This is the Buzz Studio W, your global radio network. We circle the globe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with some of the finest programs you can find anywhere around the world. And now it's time for one of your favorite shows, the Eden as an Act of Worship Ministries radio show with Ann Wooten Taylor. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited too. I know you're a guest there.
I know you do. We've got a surprise for you. It's Dr.
Oh,
Leone Letson.
yes, I'm
Yeah.
off camera, but I can see her. My sister, Dr. Leone Letson. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Hello. Hello, hello,
Thank you for the
hello.
introduction. And we're so glad to have you, Dr. Leone Letson. We are looking forward to such a wonderful interview. She's got an awesome topic for y'all. You do not want to miss this show. So stick with us, everybody. William, before we get started, how are you?
I'm terrific.
Really? You have a
Yeah.
good did you have a good
Absolutely.
week?
Yes, it was great. It was great. Absolutely great. Had some great shows, a lot of great reviews. We garnered some new listeners, and so it's been really, really cool.
Awesome. Awesome. So which show we talking about?
Oh, let's see, Coast to Coast with the
Okay.
Madman and myself.
Yeah.
Uh, oh, and Leone, Fellowman Robert Hicks.
Yes. Hmm.
Yes, yes, yes. He filled in for the Madman. The Mad Mike had some technical difficulties, so Robert at the last minute came on and co-hosted the show with me. It was
Wow.
Awesome.
outstanding. It
Awesome.
was
That
outstanding,
was nice. That was really nice.
and
Awesome.
that airs on Thursdays, ladies and gentlemen. If you were looking for a treat, tune in each and every Thursday for Coast to Coast. It's 8:15 p.m. on the East Coast, 5:15 on the West, 7:15 Central, and our brand new show, which is the Soul Cafe. That's on Tuesdays. That's a hit as well. We play music from the
Wow.
60s, 70s, and 80s. As a matter of fact, I invited you and Andre on last week.
Oh, well, look, and now you know, you know, if you're gonna talk to me, call me on the phone at home. If because me and my cell phone, when I get off work, we don't know each other very well.
I can certainly appreciate that.
But
Oh,
William, I just gotta say, you may not have realized this, but on October 1st, it will be 10 years that we've had the Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries radio show, which started right here on Studio W Buzz. Can you believe that?
outstanding,
I
outstanding.
know. I don't know how I'm gonna commemorate it, how we're gonna commemorate it, but it's quite the milestone. So I thank the Lord for all he's done and for him giving you a heart to be a blessing to Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries. 10 years of blessings to the whole world through this show. We thank God for that. So thank you, my
Uh,
friend.
well, it's my pleasure. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to step aside and enjoy your show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, hello, world. How are you today? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in to the Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries radio show, where we teach the biblical principles about the body, dieting, exercising, and maintaining a healthy body for the glory of God. We do that through our 12-week health and fitness course, which is coming up August 24th. Mark your calendars and sign up today, August 24th, 6 o'clock p.m. We'll be having the class on Zoom so everybody can participate no matter where you are. Folks, I'm going to give you more information about that in just a few minutes, but I want to put it on your mind so you'll know you can go ahead and sign up as soon as possible, even right now if you want to, because space is going to be limited on Zoom. All right, everybody. But before we get to that, I wanted to go ahead and do your weekly motivation because I know some of you can't wait to get a little bit of inspiration to help you go just a little bit further down the road until we get back next week, right? All right. So today's motivation, as always, is designed to encourage you to stay the course if you've been doing well on your health and fitness journey. to inspire you to get up and try again if you fell down somewhere along the way. And if you haven't been able to take charge of your health and fitness, we want to do so today through Jesus Christ. So today's health and fitness topic is health and fitness starts in your mind. All right, the battleground for successful and permanent weight loss and freedom from eating disorders is fought primarily in the mind. When you attend an Eating as an Act of Worship health and fitness class, this principle is taught in the very first session. We refer to our classes, our lessons, as concepts because Romans 12:2 says not to conform to the world's teachings, meaning its patterns or systems, but to be instead changed or transformed by the renewing of your mind. In other words, God says that change begins from within, which is contrary to the world's lie that all you have to do is perform a task for 30, 40 days to make it a habit. Let's be real. How many of you have faithfully stuck to a diet or exercise plan for 30 or more days and then gone back to your old eating habits? I can't tell you how many times I did that. The truth is, you are in a spiritual battle because your problem is rooted in sin. And the only way to be free from sin is through the blood of Jesus Christ. When Jesus sets your mind free, then you'll be able to think clearly because you'll have the mind of Christ as it relates to eating and drinking for the glory of God instead of satisfying your latest cravings. Once you're given a sound mind in that regard, you'll be able to test and discern the good and perfect will of God concerning food in accordance with Romans 12:2. That means you won't only be able to eat for his glory, but he'll empower you to actually stick with the health and nutrition and exercise plan by his spirit. Although the battlefield is your mind, it's still a spiritual battle. That means the battle is the Lord's. So stop fighting against him and you'll finally start to win. So, are you truly ready to change sides on the health and fitness battlefield? Are you really tired of wandering around in the wilderness of obesity and eating disorders? If so, Jesus stands ready to take the yoke of bondage from you and usher you into the promised land of healthy and fit for life. Just sign up now for the Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries health and fitness course. In the class, you're going to learn the biblical principles about the body, dieting, exercising, and maintaining a healthy body for the glory of God. Classes began on Monday, August 24th at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The classes are free. There are no registration fees or membership fees. The only thing you're responsible for is the cost of your workbook. You get your workbook at my author's website, authorannwootentaylor.com. That's right, authorannwootentaylor.com. For your convenience, all you have to do is go to our website at eatingasanactiveworshipministries.org. Go to the registration tab, and right before you get to fill out the form, you'll see the link for the site so you can purchase your workbook. Okay, authorannwootentaylor.com. If you're not able to take the class and you want to still learn those biblical principles, guess what, folks? You can do it right from the comfort of your own home. All you need is your workbook as well as the Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries Teacher's Edition book. Okay, let me explain the difference. The Teacher's Edition is meant for someone to facilitate the class, or if you're going to have a private study. But you got to do your homework first, people. so don't cheat. Let the Holy Spirit do his job as you study the Word of God. And then, of course, you go back and you read the lessons to get an even fuller picture that the Holy Spirit has already revealed. Okay. All right. I want you guys to do it the right way. You can take it, by yourself. You can do it with your family and friends, your church group. I've even had people do it together in a book club. So just remember that you can purchase your workbook, you can purchase the teacher's edition at authorannwootentaylor.com, or for your convenience, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and even Walmart.com. All right. Then read our weekly blog to get more inspiration throughout the week as you need it. Follow us on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, Pinterest, and LinkedIn for recipes, diet, and exercise tips. And tune into our radio show on Studio W Buzz at 11 o'clock a.m. on Saturday mornings every week. And you can also catch us in the Little Rock market. Yep. Victory KVDW 100.9 FM, 95.3 FM, and 15:30 a.m. at 10 o'clock every Saturday morning in Little Rock. And since we are a 501c3, please remember, everybody, make your tax deductible donations to Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries at www.eatingasanactiveworshipministries.org. All right, folks, that's your motivation for today. We hope and pray that it helps you to stay the course. If you've been doing well on your health and fitness journey, that it inspires you to get up and try again if you fell down somewhere along the way. And if you haven't been able to find a reason to take charge of your health and fitness, we hope and pray we encouraged you to do so, motivated you to do so today through Jesus Christ. All right, folks, it's time for our special guest that we have for you today. We've got William's friend with us, Dr. Leone Letsom. She's a public administrator, grant management professional, educator, consultant, and community advocate with more than 20 years of experience in government, nonprofit leadership, and community development. Throughout her career, she's managed millions of dollars in federal, state, and local funding while helping organizations strengthen programs that improve the lives of individuals and families. Dr. Letsom holds a PhD in higher education administration, and she's passionate about leadership, community impact, personal growth, and empowering others to discover and walk in their purpose. She has an LLC which provides consulting, training, technical assistance, and professional development services focused on grants management, nonprofit capacity building, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, and community engagement. Welcome to the show, Dr. Letsom. So impressed by your resume. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
How
I
are you
appreciate it.
today?
I
You're
am
welcome.
awesome. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. It's a beautiful Saturday.
Yes, I thank God that the sun is shining. My heart goes out to everybody who's had issues because of the storm-related damages
Mhm.
all over the place. We know what it's like to have tornadoes in the community, so Lord bless them to rebuild and to heal mentally as well as physically. Um, but we've got to talk about this impressive resume. How did you come to I don't know, find yourself in this particular profession? Because it sounds really dynamic what you do for the community.
Well, I feel like my steps were ordered. I always talk about that. I think initially I started out wanting to just do social work and be a counselor.
Mhm.
And I thought I was going to save people like one person at a time.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, the institution I was going to get my degree in counseling didn't really kind of connect with who I was. So I
Mhm.
ended up transferring and going into a MPA program at Grambling State University
Oh,
at
wow.
kind of like as a default, right?
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to get a master's degree. I thought I was going to kind of circumvent the original process by doing
Mhm.
it this way. But it really opened up like a whole new path for me. I really just wanted to be a nonprofit leader.
Mhm.
I believe in grassroots advocacy and working with local organizations and individuals to kind of help community.
Mhm.
Um, and in doing that, I started working for a local nonprofit organization, one of the largest ones in Nevada. And I was planning to just move through the ranks there,
Right.
and the organization went defunct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, due
Wow.
to some fiscal mismanagement. They had a number of different grants that funded over 50 programs that they had, programs that
Mhm.
spanned it from WIC to senior services, transportation services. Had been in the community for about 50 years. And I got to
Wow.
work there for all of 3 years before it went defunct.
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember, I remember thinking in that moment, okay, this is not only a tragedy for the organization, but for the community as a whole, because it's
Yes.
losing all these programs. And
Yeah.
something in me just kind of went off, like a light bulb went off, and said, I have to figure out how to help these organizations stay
Mm.
functioning, figure out how to help them build the structure necessary, get the funding necessary for them to continue to operate these services. Because I knew, like, intrinsically, there was no way that local government would be able to do all that by themselves, right? It has
Right.
to be a collaborative partnership between small grassroots organizations as well as local government. And so in doing that, I started working for a local municipality in the city I was living in and working with one of their grant programs. And I just took a deep dive into learning grants, the
Wow.
nuances of them, the code of federal regulations, so I could understand how to stand up programs, develop programs. So I
Yes.
could go in and do an analysis of existing programs and tell them what they needed to have in place for sustainability. And it just kind of grew from there.
Wow. Well, I've got to say, you said some things that really stood out to me. That word defunct and the word that the federal, or rather the local government couldn't sustain it and had to be a collaboration between the local government, the
Mhm.
community, but
Mhm.
grassroots effort. Looking at where we are now, do you see that I guess I should say that very fragile um, um, cooperation that we have between funding from governments, local communities, grassroots efforts. Do you see that in jeopardy, or has it collapsed altogether in terms of how the federal government isn't propping up a lot of programs with grants the way that it used to?
Right. I think that's a very layered question, but I'll start with kind of some fundamental things.
Okay.
So, if we talk about the partnership between the federal government and local entities, that has been in existence since the institution. That was the whole purpose of government, to serve the people, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, somewhere along the line, individuals who are running federal grant programs understood that they needed to get the money onto the streets and into these smaller nonprofit organizations so that they could better target um, systemic issues, because they
Right.
weren't going to fix it on the federal
Right.
level. Right.
Right.
Each community is nuanced. Each community has its own issues. And although we can take like a sociological look at it and think about different experiences and variables and systems and structures that are in place that kind of keep this cyclical environment where people are unable to sustain themselves and where they need additional assistance in order
Mhm.
just to live on a daily basis.
Mhm.
um, I think the federal government understands that. And for the most part, I think that leaders and people who design programs understand that. That's the whole purpose of programs being implemented in the community. Now, do they always involve people who are on the ground? Meaning, do those people have a say in how those programs should be designed? Oftentimes, they aren't. And I think
Mhm.
that's the disconnect that we're seeing right now. So we
Mhm.
have somebody who probably never used these programs before in their life saying that these programs are unnecessary. But
Mhm.
the assessment is about how the money is being spent, as opposed to how can we better design the programs to better serve the people, right?
Mhm.
And so I
Right.
think that's where the disconnect is. And I may be giving people too much credit, but I do think that's where the disconnect is, because even in working some of these programs, I'm able to see the gaps in
Mhm.
implementation, right? I'm able to
Mhm.
see the gaps in service. You
Mhm.
can't always throw money at a problem. Sometimes you
Mhm.
have to really look at the complete package, right? Take a holistic
Right.
and look at all the
Right.
variables involved in a particular outcome, and in
Right.
order to address, and see movement and changes.
I'm so glad you're mentioning those things, because as a person who's the CEO of a nonprofit organization, I can tell you very with 100% um, with 100% accuracy that this is not an easy process for a lot of people. You've
Yeah.
not only got to show what your nonprofit is able to do, but how your nonprofit is going to be able to benefit in the community in
Mhm.
order to get those grant dollars. It's a very stringent program, whether we're talking about getting grant money directly from your local, state, or federal government, or if you're talking about getting it from another organization like a Fortune 500 company. even getting people from the community to trust your organization to donate. You have to prove who you are and what you do. And a lot of times you have to show your track record as well.
Mhm.
People want to know, they want to see how you've been a benefit to the community. So it is, and so I truly do get what you're saying about some kind of way there's this disconnect between what's going on with on the ground with the nonprofits and what
Mhm.
people from the outside looking in see, because
Right.
they don't quite understand um, what's needed, and
Mhm.
how those dollars get applied. I mean, and I think another thing that we don't quite understand is how our government is funded.
Mhm.
You've got to have money coming into your government in order to be for the government to be able to assist its people. And when you're
Right.
talking about something large like the federal government or the state government, you need smaller boots on the ground type soldiers in order to do that. So thank you so much for pointing out the obvious that I think a lot of people miss because they're looking at the whole forest instead of the individual tree.
Right.
You said look
Absolutely.
like you wanted to say something. I'm sorry if I cut you off.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of reiterate that too, especially on a local government. Most of the time, local governments and counties receive their money through the federal government, and then they can either keep the money for themselves or give it to a nonprofit organization. And you're
Mhm,
right. Sometimes it's challenging for nonprofit organizations, particularly the smaller ones who are
mhm,
kind of grassroots funded as well, to
mhm,
show outcomes because that's
mhm,
a whole nother layer of administration. And
mhm.
oftentimes I say that nonprofit organizations are developed, often seeded through the heart, the minds, and the spirit of someone who has a mission and a passion to get
Yes.
something done or for a particular issue that they want to
Yes.
address. And
Yes.
sometimes they're not always tracking all of the things that a
Mhm.
funding agency would want to see in order to determine whether that program is functioning or successful. And what
Mhm.
success looks like is very subjective, depending on
Yes.
who's looking at the outcome, right? So
Yes.
I think we
Yes.
have all those other factors as well.
Now your background is just absolutely fascinating to me because I think everybody in higher education is a superhero. And I think superheroes need to be supported
Mhm.
and appreciated and propped up you know, to the best of our ability so that they can do that which they are gifted and talented and skilled and educated to do. Um, from my perspective, there's like this major attack though on what you do, on getting those federal dollars where they need to be, and on basically the whole structure that we have for educating our kids. How is from your perspective, how is the education system faring with the multiple changes in funding and structure, everything that we see that's been going on over the last couple of years in our educational system?
Well, I'll say this. I think for me, I knew that there were issues in multiple systems,
Mhm,
right, that make up the way we function as a society.
mhm,
But more than that, as opposed to looking at the system and trying to restructure the system, it's totally
mhm,
dismantling the system without creating a safety net to
mhm,
protect those who are historically underserved or marginalized. But it almost
mhm,
seems intentional, right?
mhm,
You see an attack on DEI, you see an
mhm,
attack on underserved and marginalized communities.
mhm.
And we already know that with the No Child Left Behind Act, that was
That
already
was
a
horrible.
yeah, injustice that was done, right? Because students
Right.
really didn't have to. And although I get the discrepancy with taking tests and ensuring that students are passing these comprehensive examinations, but that's a whole other subject because we know that different communities test different, learn
Yes.
different.
Yes.
So but overall I think dismantling a system without creating an alternative system, an alternative functioning system, is a problem,
Right.
but it's an intentional problem that's set up. I'm seeing children, right? I remember, and my son is, he's I would consider him an adult now, but
Mhm.
in the latter part of his high school years, they changed. That's when they changed math, and they were doing
Yes.
poor
Oh
math.
gosh.
And
Yes.
yeah, and I remember saying, how is this going to help you like really understand mathematics? I didn't
Right.
understand. I didn't understand why they were changing it. I didn't
Mhm.
understand it. I didn't understand the
Exactly.
functionality of it. And to me, it wasn't simple enough for students to process math in their head, right? It was
Right.
creating this complex system where students had to really sit and
Mhm.
focus on a methodology of doing something that
Right.
wasn't necessarily like intrinsically motivating or intrinsically a way that a person would see to complete a task or complete a math problem.
Exactly. My husband, our kids were thankfully small when that happened. Originally, they were at a Montessori school, a private school, but when they transitioned to a public charter school, and everything was Singapore math, which is one of the terms that they use to describe it. It was like, oh my gosh, because I do the other stuff. I do the history and the English. My husband was the math person. You are talking about somebody completely frustrated and angry
Yeah.
with with the school system. I think their point was to try to make it easier for kids, but I don't know if it works. I guess we will see with this generation that has grown up with it, whether or not it was worth it. But I completely see your point. So, in light of the struggles that we are seeing in terms of getting grant money in traditional ways that we're used to, in order for there to be this synchronization between money you get from either federal, state, or local government, and grassroots efforts, and the community coming together. You mentioned that it's very important for people to know, I believe, their purpose when it comes to creating these opportunities, the understanding your purpose, and recognizing the value of your lived experience. How does that help? How does that play into making up this shortfall? Because I know what the Lord has called me to do in terms
Mhm.
of this health and fitness nonprofit Christian organization at that. And I know what my mandate is. But there are a lot of other people whose mandate is different, who do depend primarily on grant money from these different sources, whether it's a local source, or a federal source, or state source. Their organizations have been running on that. So how do they pivot and use their purpose and the value of their lived experiences to sort of compensate in a way for the shortfall that they're experiencing?
Yeah, I think that that's very challenging, especially when nonprofit organizations and small businesses oftentimes start out
Mhm.
um, in a way that is heart and mind driven, and
Mhm.
then they're layering that with funding, and
Mhm.
they never really think about how can they sustain these programs without the funding, right? Most
Right.
nonprofit organizations that or people who are developing nonprofit organizations, the first thing they say to me is, can you help me get grant funding?
Mhm.
And yeah, I can do that. I can try to assist you in doing that. But there are some
Right.
questions I need to ask you first, because
A
these are the
lot of
questions that
questions.
they're going to ask. How long
Yes.
have you been doing this work? Because
Right.
there's also that sector of people who develop programs to get money, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so it really functions better if you found ways to sustain your programming and to sustain your community-based activity without federal funding. And then you
Mhm.
come in and try to layer the grant funding from the
Right.
federal government. And you're
Right.
looking at them to cover some aspects of your program, not the
Mhm.
entire program. So what,
Right.
and in doing that, you have to say, okay, I want you to cover, let's say, 10 students or 10 adults on their journey. And this is
Mhm.
what it's going to cost you. And this is going to be the outcome.
Mhm.
Rather than looking at them to fund an entire program, meaning the operations and
Mhm.
the direct services to individuals or families.
Right, right. And so I I think one of the big things about nonprofits is that people look at the need, they want to be helpful, but it's kind of like on the for-profit side. You've got a vision, you know what you want to do, but you don't necessarily know how to bring that into fruition. You don't have the business sense, and some people might say. So
Mhm.
how do you take your service mindedness to other people, um, and create something that is a benefit to the community, but that's sustainable at the same time?
Well, I think each nonprofit organization is different and it depends on the population you're serving, right?
Mhm,
So, if you're doing something that's centered around health and wellness, then you may want to find a way to partner with local health districts. And
mhm,
they have a lot of educational programs, and maybe you can serve as a conduit through one of
mhm,
their educational programs, or looking at other nonprofit organizations who are health and wellness serving organizations, or even for-profit organizations where you can come in as a nonprofit entity to do operations and services that their organization
mhm.
could find helpful and necessary to their patient population. So it really depends on your nonprofit organization. I'm
Right.
able to look at nonprofit organizations and the things that they do and figure out how to connect them to other organizations. That's the other big thing that I think nonprofit organizations need to really focus on, is not working in a silo. Like,
Exactly.
when we're
Exactly.
building community is not just about individuals connecting, it's also about organizations connecting. It's about people connecting to organizations to kind of build this network of services that really seem to better serve individuals, because most
Right.
people aren't coming in with one problem. They probably have a myriad of different things that
They
need to be
do.
worked on, and one
Mhm,
organization can't do all of that. And that's why I say it's important to partner with other organizations, like-minded organizations who are
mhm.
serving a population, the target population that you'd like to serve, and kind of building out what a network of service would look like, or a continuum of care would look like for those people or families.
Right. And another thing I think you wanted to mention is the importance of education and lifelong learning, because a lot of people don't recognize that even when you are doing something that's service oriented for the community, there are still rules that you
Yeah.
have to follow. There you've got tax obligations to meet. People don't realize that, when it comes to your 501c3, for example, there are certain things that you can and that you cannot do in order to maintain your nonprofit status. And then there are other rules, that people don't realize, like for instance, conflict of interest and that type of thing. So
Yeah.
explain the importance of, of constantly educating yourself, and being a lifelong learner, and at the same time creating opportunities for people in the community.
So now you're tapping into what I do through my consulting firm.
Hmm.
So what I'm able to do is work with nonprofit organizations when I talk about help them build capacity and sustainability, I'm
Hmm.
talking about those things, looking at
Hmm.
their structure, ensuring that they have the right 501c status, that they understand the Code of Federal Regulations,
Hmm. Oh, did I lose you?
particularly the one, because each funding source has its own rules and regulatory statutes that you have to
Right.
follow. And
Right.
then
Sounds
there
like
is a
I'm losing.
uniform guidance that guides how you operate financially as an organ. Growing your organization, you need to be aware and cognizant of those things. And that's where I think a lot of nonprofit organizations have hiccups, or where they end up going defunct, because there's some dot or I that they didn't dot and T that they
Mhm.
didn't cross, that
Uh-oh. I
they
can't hear.
missed in the
Mhm.
process.
Mm.
And then, so I think the first important thing, if a nonprofit organization can do it, is to hire a professional nonprofit
Mhm.
consultant who can work with your organization to build up your infrastructure, make sure that you have the right policies and practices in place. If you're going to apply for a grant, make sure that they're reviewing those documents, and that
Mhm.
whatever you say that you're going to do in that grant application, that you have the infrastructure
Mhm.
necessary to be successful in implementing that.
Right. And I apologize. I hope you're able to hear me okay. Can you hear me okay, Dr.
Yes, I can hear you.
Ledsam? Okay.
Mhm.
Um, I think that is a really important point because a lot of people don't realize, they just think 501c3, tax exempt. There are lots of nuances to that. For instance, you've got our organization, which is considered a private foundation, versus a whole list of other
Right.
areas that you can fall into under that nonprofit, or rather tax exempt, which is what the federal government is actually looking at, your tax exempt status. And different grant providers will give money to one type of tax exemption and not another. So
Yes.
these are really important nuances that people need to understand, and you learn it a lot of times the hard way, because again, you have people who are, you know, purpose driven, who want to just serve other folks, who see a problem and want to go and tackle it.
That's right.
And so what do you say to these people who, have the right heart, have the right mind, have the right spirit, and then they bump into, a setback or disappointment when they're, trying to say fund their organization, or trying to reach out to the public in order to provide services. But because they're new, they're unknown, people may be a little hesitant because we got way too many folks, as you said before, that are just about money and scams. So
Yeah.
what do you say to those people who are dealing with that?
I would say one of the first things that they need to do is probably figure out, everybody doesn't need to be a 501c3. As you
Mm-hmm.
said before, there are a number of different nonprofit statuses and tax statuses that you can have. And so
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you are finding the status that best works for your organization, and
Mm-hmm.
as it not only as it currently is, but as you desire to see it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, because we're also talking about scaling and growth. You want to
Right.
think about the future of your organization and not just the moment. Maybe in the moment you
Right.
are only thinking about serving people, but think
Mm-hmm.
about the potential for service,
Mm-hmm.
and where you want to be, and then think about how you need to create a business plan around that. So nonprofit
Yes.
organizations need to have a business plan as well, and
Mm-hmm.
that business plan also needs to include at least your first strategic plan that talks
Mm-hmm.
about where, how, and where and why you're going to grow the organization and what that looks like in the next 5 to 10 years. Um,
Right.
and in most communities, there are people who do what I do. I know here in the city of Raleigh, there are probably about 3 large organizations who
Mm-hmm.
do technical assistance and capacity building for nonprofit organizations. And probably most metropolitan cities, there's something of that nature. And if
Mm-hmm.
they don't, if it's not a nonprofit organization that does that type of work for other nonprofit organizations, then maybe the economic development department of your local government, or your community development department, or your neighborhood services department has something similar that will help small nonprofit organizations
Mm-hmm.
build capacity to implement programs.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think the general public may not understand, that one of the fundamental differences between a for-profit organization and a nonprofit organization is that, you know, you can go into business for yourself as a for-profit organization, but nonprofits are legally meant for the community to
Right.
benefit the community, and not necessarily just the person who founded it. While you should get a sense of personal fulfillment,
Mhm.
and depending on what you're doing, perhaps even spiritual growth, as you mentioned, when you're doing this work, it's primarily so that whatever need your organization is intended to fill is being met by your organization, at least to some degree. And that particular organization, that purpose, that mission should outlive you and your tenure,
Right.
and in that organization. So when you say people need to have a business plan for a nonprofit, that for some folks, that can be a real disconnect because we think of business plans when we're talking about for-profit organizations, but when I'm doing stuff for the community, I need to have this lined up too. um, can you explain a little bit more about how that leadership, and organizational structure works? Because I don't think that they see it as that a lot of people see it in the same way. It's not necessarily authority like you would have
Okay.
in a for profit.
So I think, okay, I know for most nonprofit organizations, when they start out, sometimes it's hard to acquire board members. It's important that you
Yes.
have a diverse board, right?
Yes.
So you want to have community members on your board. You want to have people that understand the mission and the vision of your organization and where you're trying to go. Um, so it's not all about having family members. You want to make
Right.
sure that there's not that conflict of interest or there's any nepotism happening. You want to make sure that you have a good, diverse background board, someone that's good in finances, so accountant or a CPA, some treasurer or somebody of that nature. And if you're creating a nonprofit organization, you may decide whether you want to be the chairman of the board of directors or not, whether you're going to play the role of just the EO or the executive director or the chief executive officer role and not have the board chair. You can have those roles in duality, but more than likely, as your organization grows, you're going to want those roles to be separate.
There it is. There it is. So again, when we're talking about the purpose of these particular organizations and how to fulfill that particular purpose in order to, build a stronger community through the volunteerism, what does that look like? And it's in actuality, what does
Your
that
board is an unpaid big board, so they're going to be their first volunteer.
There it is. There
You're going to have right until you get to a different level. Your board is going to be an all volunteer board, and their job is extremely important because they're essentially helping you stand up your nonprofit organization. So that's why I say it's important for you to have individuals on that board that really understand what that organization is going to need to be sustainable and to build capacity to implement whatever the mission and the vision is for your organization. Again, if there's anything wrong with having family members on your board of directors. I work with a nonprofit organization right now. I think his mom is a CPA, his sister's this, and I see that all the time. But what I am encouraging him to do, or that organization to do, is to look for other members in the community that could fulfill those seats. Right. And I encourage all nonprofit organizations to do that. It may be easier to work with your family members because they may better understand or be connected to the mission and vision of your organization. But you really want to branch out and have other people who are in your community or people who are familiar with those various boards roles and responsibilities to be on your board of directors, no matter how small your nonprofit organization is.
I will tell you from experience that some of the best board members we've ever had have been graduates of the Eating as an Active Worship Ministries health and fitness course because they believe in the organization. They've already done it themselves, and so they have a way of convincing other people to not only just come to class or to donate or to somehow be a part of the organization. It's amazing when you have someone who shares your vision. You do want, of course, is if you can get it, professionals in the community or whatnot. But the people who are going to be the boots on the ground working the hardest for you are the ones who I think
believe in the mission and vision.
Exactly. Believe in the mission, share what it is that you believe and want to see it go forward. Just this year alone, we've gotten speaking engagements because a graduate of the course recommended us to a church, so that we can, so
but that's that community partnership that I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And so as you do that for one church, then now you're able to probably create programming for multiple churches and present that to multiple churches. So then you're growing the ministry and growing the mission of the organization, right?
Exactly.
Not only that, you need to have someone that is strong at fundraising because initially you may not necessarily get grant funding to support your mission.
Exactly.
And so you need someone that can raise money. You want to have somebody on your board that knows how to go out there and inspire people to donate towards the mission.
Yes, our one of our first board members, I'll never forget, she was a graduate of our class. She lost like 30 pounds, 36 pounds, something like that, just during the 12-week course, which was obviously phenomenal. But she knew how to raise money. That's not my forte. I don't, I'm not that good at that part of it, but she knew how to do silent auctions and all these
Yeah.
other types of things. And it, and you get to learn in the process when you have a strong board member, so that all those things can move forward. Your board, your organization learns as a whole, and you've got something in place that you can build from. So
Mhm.
I completely agree with everything you're saying, Dr. Letson. Now, when we're talking about civic engagement and public service, can you expound a little bit more on that for those who are wondering how they become civically engaged, and other ways that they can probably participate? Because you said there are other ways you can do it besides participating in a nonprofit organization. What else can they do?
Right. I think one of the most important things to do is link up with your local government. Go to
Mhm,
those, council meetings or commission meetings and join those task force that they have set up. Because through
mhm,
those, you're going to learn about nonprofit organizations and small businesses that
right,
also participate in that activity or have a mission that's centered around that activity.
mhm,
Right.
right,
Um, so if you start, and they have a lot of community, what they, I guess that you would consider them community advocacy boards, that, or they're called CACs,
mhm,
or citizens advisory boards. And so
mhm,
if you can start participating in those and being part of those, then you also have a say in who should get funding through the local government, because
mhm,
now you understand what the gaps are, or
mhm,
at least the gaps that are being presented. You understand what nonprofit organizations have been seeking funding, and then perhaps you then can start to align those things, the organizations that need funding, where the gaps are, and the amount of money that's available for the community to address any of the, or mitigate any of the issues that that community is seeing. So I think the first thing to do would be to start going to those council meetings, because then you, and a lot of nonprofit organizations go there too. I would say if you have a nonprofit organization and you're talking about civic engagement, I would get on the council agenda. Maybe
mhm,
you go once a month and
mhm,
you speak at the public forum and you talk about what your organization does, because that's
mhm.
another way to get your organization in the forefront and in the sight of council, who eventually will make the ultimate recommendation for
Mhm.
funding through various funding streams that occur through that municipality.
Now, I will say, for those of you hearing that, if you've got a 501c3, nonprofit organization, that's different from engaging in politics. So you can't engage in politics, but you do want to be able to have a way to be on the local government's radar, so that you'll be available for funding. Just
Yeah,
want to
it's
point that out.
separate. It's
Yeah.
separate. So going to speak, a lot of nonprofit organizations do this because they
Mhm.
want the council or commission to know the work that they're doing in the community.
Right,
So that's
right,
not about being political. It's about
right.
simply presenting your organization and the mission of your organization and what you do, and maybe even some of the outcomes,
Exactly.
to council, so they're aware. If they have a
Exactly.
resource, that they can connect to you or connect you to a resource, so that you can start to bridge that gap. Because the more
Right.
you start to do that and they know your organization is available to the community, then they could start making referrals, or they can acknowledge that perhaps your organization should be a recipient of whatever funding. Sometimes they have these things called outside agency grants, where it's not necessarily connected to the federal government, but it's money that the local government has set aside to fund nonprofit organizations. And so
Mhm.
sometimes even doing that will put you in the, in the forefront of receiving those type of funds, because now they know that your organization exists, number one, number two, the people that they're serving, and then also your mission, and then your outcomes. And so
Mhm.
a lot of times they will say, okay, well, let's see how we could fund this organization. And this
Mhm.
this is what we want to fund. We want to fund after school program, and we want them to come into our local parks and recreation center and operate their program. And that's
Mhm.
how these things start to develop these collaborative partnerships, and also sustainable funding.
Right. You are such a wealth of information. It's hard to believe we don't have that much time left. I said earlier that I've been blessed to be able to practice my faith, as well as my purpose,
Mhm.
with Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries. Describe, from your long, experience, how, a person who can't be a part of, or isn't necessarily a part of an organization that's clearly faith-based like mine, can still have that connection between their faith, their purpose, and their meaningful work.
Can you repeat that question one more time? I think you cut out at the end.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've been having a little bit of problems with this app StreamYard for the
Okay.
whole time. But if you can hear me, the connection between faith, purpose, and meaningful work.
Okay. You want me to describe the connection?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, as I stated initially, I started saying that I thought that my mission and my purpose was to counsel people individually. And so I was going to
Mhm,
be a therapist. And then
mhm.
kind of, God unfolded this path for me to help nonprofit organizations and
Yes.
for profit organizations, small not for profit organizations on a larger scale. And so I
Mhm,
realized that through following the word that I was receiving, that this journey was unfolding for me. It gave me the
mhm.
opportunity to run a large nonprofit organization, global nonprofit organization who serves
Glory to
women
God.
through Swing Fi Swing Social Fellowship Incorporated. I've been an executive leader at a couple of nonprofit organizations. Now I do global consulting through a global consulting firm. I'm also doing local consulting at a local municipality here in the city of Durham. I think the more you hone in on your purpose and listen to that voice that guides you,
Mhm.
sometimes things look like perhaps they may not be going the way that you want them to go, but really it's God's divine protection,
Mhm.
steering you in a different direction and leading you on the path that God wants to see you walk on. And so
Yeah.
just I think being open to those signs and being open to the voice and the
Mhm.
word so that you're able to hear those things clearly and
Mhm.
that you walk in faith so that you're not. I mean, I was unemployed from December until April, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, like what my
Mhm.
next step was going to be.
Right.
Um, because I had just left a consulting opportunity that and I was full-time consulting. And that was the first time
Mhm.
I'd ever done consulting for like full-time. Usually it's always my part-time job. And so
Mhm.
doing it full-time, I had a lot of experiences that didn't really sit right with my spirit.
Mhm.
So I had to leave that, but I was like, I feel like I was guided to do that work. And I was trying to kind of battle with God. I know that you wanted, I feel like you told me to do this. I heard you
Mhm.
tell me to do this. Now I don't
Mhm.
understand why I'm having so many issues or so much toxic experience
Exactly.
in this environment, because I
Yes.
know you sent me here with a
Right.
purpose. So
Right.
even in doing that and finally deciding having a long conversation, deciding to leave and then come back to Raleigh full time, I I had to kind of do some deep exploration as to what I wanted to do next, and I realized also that that was still my walk. Consulting is still my walk. Serving
Mhm.
nonprofit organizations is still my walk. Like the work that nonprofit organizations do in the community is God's work. And so
Amen.
helping them to ensure that they have the capacity to continue to do that work and they're not getting caught up in the worldly nuances or bureaucracy so they
There it
can't do their
is.
work is part
There
of
it
my
is.
ministry. So
Amen.
yeah.
Well, we only have a few minutes left. Tell us some practical steps that any individual can take to create positive change in their communities, whether they're, dealing with nonprofits or not. What can they do?
It starts with, well, here it goes. It starts with the individual, and then you have to build community around whatever the mission and vision is that you have. So
Mhm.
even for me, I do this stuff, but I'm also passionate about serving those who are unhoused. So
Mhm.
I carry a toiletry bag in my car with
Right.
socks, scarves, blankets, And that
Right.
stays in my, stays in the back of my car. If I see somebody who is lacking resources or needs that type of resource, then I have it at my disposal. You don't
Mhm.
have to do these things through a large network. It helps for you to be able to have that. I mean,
Right.
working through my sisterhood helps for me to have that network of women who have a similar vision and mission to
Mhm.
serve people. That's
Right.
helpful, so I can assist people on a larger scale. But also doing the work individually is important too, right?
Right.
You should be able, the same work you should be able to accomplish through building community is the same work you should be able to do independently without community, because that's placed in you and on you by the creator. So
Amen. 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 I gotta say, there's my last thing is I believe that the ministry that the Lord is, has me to be the CEO over is meant to be a blessing to the community.
mhm.
And that it should have a legacy through mentorship and investing in future generations.
Yes.
How do you set your organization, or even if you're not working with an organization, the things you do up in that particular way so that that's the outcome?
Well, mentorship is important. I think people who believe in mentorship understand that it's not a competition, but
There it is.
but rather you're planting the seed for the future. So you
Mhm.
have to, we talk about what the future generation is going to look like, especially with them dismantling education in the way that they have. And I think, yes, that's important. But the first step to education begins in community and begins in the home. So we have to kind of look to people or look to youth who are interested in this type of work and kind of pull them under our wing, so to speak, and give them the guidance necessary so they can begin to do the work, and maybe not continue the work necessarily that we're doing, but plant the seed for them to grow their own tree,
Amen.
right?
Amen. I gotta say, I hate that we only have 3 minutes left because you are a treasure. How can people, because I know lots of people with nonprofits who come for advice from me, but how can people hire you who are looking for a nonprofit consultant? Whether we're talking about people in your area, or whether or not you have clients long distance. Well, tell them how they can follow you, all of that.
I do. I have clients globally. I have a contract with someone in Nigeria.
Wow.
Again, I do global consulting through a global consulting firm.
Mhm.
And most of my work is acquired through word of mouth. So you
Wow.
can reach out to me on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Leonie Lutzum
All
on
right.
LinkedIn, and just send me a message and then we can start our dialogue from there.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to all the listeners. I know William put up one of your comments. I believe it once one from Miss Murray. And thank you, Brother Hicks, and everybody else who tuned in. Sorry, I was so engrossed in the conversation that I didn't read comments this time. But I thank you, William.
Oh, how many comments? Did we get a lot of comments? I didn't
We
even.
had some, some people,
Okay.
basically people agreeing that sometimes
Mhm.
family and business just don't mix. And then sometimes you have family members who can bring something to the table. For instance, we have on our board our our chief health and fitness officer, who is my cousin, who has his own health and fitness
Okay.
business, because he's a personal trainer.
Uh-huh.
So, and he has his own business, and he's been doing it for years. So, one of who better, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Who understands
Mhm.
um, the exercise portion of health and fitness, to
Mhm.
fulfill that role. But like you said, you want people who are actually qualified, who have not just a relationship with you, somebody that you trust, but
That's
also somebody
right.
who knows what they are doing
Absolutely.
when you invite them to be a part of it. But
Mhm.
anyway, I hate the time is up. I wish that there was more. Look, you are just gonna have to come back one day
Okay. Sure
to talk,
thing.
to talk some more to our people. But it has been a blessing to have you. How can they follow you on social media and get in touch with you if they want your services?
Doc Leone's Life Brand
Okay.
on Facebook, and then Leone Letzum on LinkedIn.
And spell Leonie for them, because I don't want girl.
Leone Lettton. S as in Sam, O, M as in Mary, E.
Thank you so much, Dr. Letsom. It has been a pleasure having you here. That's my time, folks. It is time for me to get out of the way so Studio W Bus's train can keep on rolling. But we hope and pray that you have been blessed. I know I was blessed, and I trust that everybody in the community who's looking to get involved, especially in this period of time where help isn't as forthcoming as it used to be, that you are motivated, encouraged, inspired to do something, and given a pathway that you can see to do it. But you got to stay tuned to Studio W Buzz because we've got more coming up for you. Tomorrow, you want to be here for the Boomerang Radio Show that comes on at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And we discuss whatever's bothering William during the week. It's me, William, Dr. Cecilia Sims, and Mad Mike. Then you want to tune in on Thursday for Mad Mike and Wild Will Coast to Coast. And don't forget to come back on Saturday for another Eating as an Active Worship Ministries radio show episode. We look forward to having you guys here. Thank you so much. It's not completely 10 years yet, but I'm feeling very grateful for the length of time that God's been using us to be of service to the community. So God bless you. Thank you for continuing to listen. And please do tell your friends to tune in right here Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock a.m. on Studio W Buzz, 10 o'clock a.m. on Victory KVDW 95.3 FM, 100.9 FM, and 15:30 a.m. in the Little Rock area. Okay, William, we're all done.
Well, great. And again, guys, make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're going to talk about DEI, the importance of DEI, Black history, and the state of the union. Yep. Pull out the fire extinguishers, pull out the fire extinguishers because it's going to get hot.
Hopefully not as hot as it was last week.
I'm not making any promises. Hey guys, thank you so much. And we're going to change the time for the sports page. Generally, it starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays, but we're going to move that up to 6 p.m. Tonight because we're going to have a watch party.
Awesome.
With the New York Knicks. That's right. And the
Oh
San
my
Antonio
God.
Oh
Spurs.
gosh, here we go.
Yes.
Spurs, go
Y'all have fun with
Spurs.
that. You have fun with that.
Oh boy. You know, I'm a bit. It's bittersweet for me because I like the Spurs. I really like the Spurs. Okay, but the New York Knicks hasn't won anything in 53 years, and so
Aw.
it hasn't won the championship. So anyway, let's see what happens. You know what I really like to see, Dr. Lissom? I'd like to see Game 7. I really like to see a
Okay.
Game 7. Okay.
And you want to
Okay, that
you want
means
to
that the
stretch
Spurs
this
would have
thing
to
out.
win tonight. They need to win tonight. So anyway, guys, kick back, grab a glass, and enjoy. And thank you so much, and enjoy your Saturday. Listening live
Okay.
here on Studio W, The Buzz, your global radio network. Keep it locked, and make sure you download that app, Studio W. Enjoy your Saturday.